Yo! Finally! It's my turn! Mom, Big Sis, and Yachi had hosted numerous chapters before. Mom said I will make a much better host than Big Sis. This week, the Doki Doki Reading Club will be reading Chapter 4 of Volume 11. Yachi said to click the like and subscribe buttons. She is the unquestionable ruler of this channel. It'll make her really happy if you do that. Lately, I've been missing Big Sis a lot, you see. She's been too busy with basketball to hang out with me. But with Mom's help, I was able to tag along with her on her way to the basketball court. I was really hoping that it'll be just the two of us, but my big sis's friend is waiting for her there. I guess she's okay. She smells like flowers and gave me some beans. Huh, a flower person? Or a bean person? Big sis surely likes making friends with weirdos like herself. I don't know a whole lot about this person, flower bean person. So let's get to know her together. Me, you, and your number one friend. It's time to Adashima and chill.
Ah, there is someone here. This would make for a great picture. Good morning.
Morning?
You are in middle school, right?
Yes.
Third year.
Huh? Who are you?
Just your average university student.
Oh?
Starting off your day playing basketball is a very healthy habit.
Okay.
I can't even remember the last time I've touched a basketball. Imagine the following. You're on a date when you happen to spot a basketball and a hoop. You pick the ball up, and without pausing the conversation you are having with your partner, casually take a shot and sink it.
What?
That would make for a great picture, don't you think?
No, I don't. Why are you sighing like that?
It's sad that the most you can achieve with middle schoolers is friendship.
Meaning?
Well, not that it's necessarily a bad thing. Next time we meet, please teach me how to play. I'd like to make that picture come reality.
That morning, there was already someone else using the basketball hoop. Was I to blame, or were they? Probably neither. I'd simply gotten up unusually early, decided to go outside and avoid waking up the rest of my family, spotted the basketball, and decided to find a place where I could put it to use. The fact that it was the second day that exact series of events had taken place was a little more than a coincidence.
Ah,
The smile on that person's face as she turned around instantly washed away the smoldering warmth of the morning sun. It was the same woman wearing a kimono the other day, just this time with a basketball.
I bought this yesterday.
Again, with that sudden friendliness, though I don't imagine that it was her intention. There was something about it that caused the shields in my head to go up.
I decided I'd start exercising my arms.
My question was quickly answered as I scanned her from her feet to her shoulder. Right. It wasn't like she could really move around. Then again, perhaps she came from the sort of family where she didn't have a choice. Although, if that was the case, then what was she doing here, and especially this early in the morning?
There isn't much I can do about that.
She replied.
The circumstances make it so that I have to come here dressed like this. Not that I mind, though I might prefer a lighter yukata. Morning.
Ignoring my reaction, the woman decided to simply continue the conversation on her own turn. Talking to her kind of felt like talking to a teacher, to someone who would walk straight past you because they were too busy, to an adult. Compared to me, she was a building that had stood still for years. This was all to say, there existed a definite gap between us. Yet, it also felt like were I to stand on the very tip of my toes, I might just barely reach over that gap. I'd interacted with plenty of older students, but none of them put the A to adult quite to the extent that she did.
Anyway, I was thinking that you could teach me how to throw.
The girl started with a grin. She was quite good at that, switching between serious and childish expressions. Was it a case of her being full of emotion, or those emotions being unstable?
Well, in that case, how about I watch from the side while you do it?
Go ahead, she added, while taking a step backward, almost like handing the field over to me. When exactly I'd agreed to teach her? Furthermore, what exactly did that entail? Should I throw the ball like I always did? Or was there something else I needed to do? No. I was giving this far too much thought. Those feelings of uncertainty ended up reflecting in my throw. The ball left my hands before my elbow were able to extend fully, causing it to completely miss the hoop. Predictably so. I was still probably supposed to pick it up, huh? Yeah, probably. With that in mind, I ran after the ball.
It seems like it's important to spread your feet and shoulders, and lift your elbows high.
Wait, she'd seriously been checking me out? That seemed a bit unpleasant. Having retrieved the ball, I then turned around, only to find a woman smiling back at me.
Is there anything else, teacher?
Teacher? There was something thoroughly embarrassing about her calling me that. It made my side feel all ticklish. Failed to do that, and well, you just saw what happened.
Okay, teacher. Okay, middle schooler.
That I felt like that was too far in the opposite direction. The woman spread her feet and revealed that she was wearing a traditional Zuri sandals. In no universe were those an appropriate choice for doing sports. And yet, not even I could deny that there was something breathtaking about the sight of her standing there with the basketball in hand. A bit of her elbow peeked out from under her sleeve, its paleness utterly capturing my eyes. Imagine how smooth her skin must have felt. Simply staring at it made me feel all refreshed. The woman raised her arm, took position, and fired. The ball flew in a much straighter of a line than it had the previous day, this time hitting the front of the ring. I shifted my gaze back to the woman, only to find her hair and sleeve alike still swaying in the air from her jump, pushing her flowery scent into my direction like a giant fan.
I hit the ring.
The girl stated in a delighted tone of voice. She then ran to pick up the ball, her arms swinging behind her. The way she ran was so childish, so full of energy, that I could hardly believe my eyes. Having retrieved the ball, the woman then placed it on the bench. This was followed by her spinning around and sitting on the bench herself.
Can we talk for a moment? If not, I'll come up with something.
What a cool response, I thought. Didn't say it out loud though. I approached the woman with my ball in hand, but since I didn't feel like sitting down, I chose instead to stand next to her, kinda like the moon orbiting the sun.
No reason, really. I just like talking to girls. Well, sometimes I do have ulterior motives, but you know.
Stated calmly, rubbing the tip of her sandals against the ground.
Oh, nothing you need to worry about. Our relationship is perfectly wholesome. Yes, so wholesome.
What was she even talking about? As if feasting on my bewilderment, the girl continued.
I personally love high school girls, so no need to worry.
Her voice and expression remained as eloquent as ever. What stuck out were those three simple words.
Yep. No offense, but middle school girls don't really do it for me. And by really, I mean not at all.
Why did she sound so proud of herself as she said this that I didn't know? A beauty who loved high school girls. The kimono, the smell of flowers, the kind voice, the softness. There was too much going on here, and I quickly found myself getting all flustered.
High school girls are special. Come next year and you will understand too.
When she used the word love, how exactly did she mean it? Try as I might, I was unable to comprehend her point of view. But how about in a few years? Once I started high school, would I too begin looking at the girls in my class with glimmering eyes? No way. It was in my nature that whenever there was something I didn't understand, I simply kept on poking at it. Yet, even I was a little afraid to ask her what it was about high school girl that she liked so much. Although, at the same time, it wasn't like she was hiding it, was she? So what was stopping me then? I had a surprising amount of trouble finding the right word. It felt like I was treading on some pretty dangerous territory here. But why? Because she might have meant her statement literally? Wasn't that just prejudice? Prejudice was bad, though at the same time, yeah.
Yep, I specialize in them.
Was that how you used that word? I could feel my brain swelling up with all these expressions. I was almost certainly never going to be using again.
Oh, but don't get me wrong. I do also just like talking with girls in general. Fills a different sort of need.
The woman then paused and looked at me, almost as if wanting me to say something back. But what? How exactly was one supposed to respond to that? I found myself awkwardly looking around, searching for an answer in my surroundings.
You're really cute. That means that people are only going to be paying more attention to you going forward. Many will approach you. Heck, I might even do so myself. Anyway, you just need to learn how to feed on that attention in a positive way, and you'll be set for life. I do that too, and it's the one thing where I don't limit myself to just high schoolers.
I might not have known much, but I did know that last part wasn't something you were meant to say while staring into the distance with your eyes glimmering. However, that wasn't what I wanted to focus on here. She had just called me cute. Of all the scratches the woman had given me, that one was without a doubt the deepest. The wind wasn't blowing, yet I could feel it brushing against my cheek, making it impossible for me to calm down.
The basket looks pretty high up from here, huh? And also far away.
The woman stated, using her hand as a visor. She was far taller than me, yet even she felt that way, huh?
Then again, I suppose that's what makes it a goal worth aspiring towards.
She placed her hand on the bench and pushed herself up. She didn't turn to face the basket this time, but instead the town, which I suppose meant that she was going to be leaving. I did consider asking something like, leaving already? But ultimately decided against it. It just didn't feel right. The already part, especially. The moment of hesitation did not go unnoticed by the woman, as indicated by the cheeky smile that formed on her face.
I feel fully satisfied having met with you. Yes, that's the sort of face I like to see.
What did she mean by that? What kind of face was I making currently?
I'm going to keep practicing on my own. Then, once I get a little better, we can have a game. Yeah, like a free throw competition or whatever. Anyway, later.
Even her farewells were swift. I stared at her as she walked away, half running to keep up with the ball she was awkwardly dribbling. Everything about her, from the tip of her toes to the top of her head, felt like it came from a different world altogether. Were you to tell me that I was still dreaming, I would have believed it. That seemed highly unlikely to me, although given that there had been a second time, I suppose that a third time wasn't completely out of the question. Come tomorrow, would I be able to see her again? To see that expression of hers that made you aware of her kindness the moment you laid your eyes upon her? I had to wonder, where exactly did that kindness of hers spring from? A part of me felt like it wasn't something that you wanted to know, that once you laid your eyes upon it, there was no more turning back. Feelings of curiosity and fear raced through my mind in equal parts. By the time that feeling had reached my fingers, I was ready to conclude. I did not like it. By the time I woke up the following day, it was already deep into the morning. I checked my pillow side clock, turned over, and then sprang up. This was what you'd generally consider a healthy amount of time to get out of bed. My mind was clear like I'd not slept at all. Though, contrary to what you might expect, that only made me feel worse. Why? It wasn't like I was in any kind of a rush. Staring at my curtains and the sunlight shining through, only one thought entered my mind. She probably wasn't still there, was she? Immediately after, a wave of guilt that shocked even myself rushed over me. This wasn't good. Not good at all. Were I to let her in any further, there would be permanent consequences. Standing here, squeezing my chest with my eyes closed, I made a promise to myself. This was going to end here. Back in elementary school, I felt like I could have slept through the whole summer vacation had it not been for Mom waking me up. Yet, now, as soon as the day started to get even slightly warm, it felt like I was being boiled alive in my bed.
Maybe my nerves were too close to the surface of my skin. Yeah, that must have been it. As if repenting for my failure the day before, I woke up from a state of shallow sleep just as the night was turning into day. Please, just a little bit longer. I fell back onto the futon, closed my eyes, and told myself I'd sleep until the cicadas started singing. That thought alone was enough to cause my eyeballs to feel mighty heavy. It was an annoying sensation to be sure, though thankfully not the sort that kept you awake. I'd only met her twice, yet I still knew nothing about her. Somehow, I felt like the same would be true even if I were to meet her 1,000 times. I was, of course, referring to that mysterious woman. Even more so than her outfit, it was her scent that had left the largest impression on me. It felt like it passed right through your nose and penetrated your brain directly. I was quite resistant towards the idea of the two of us meeting daily going forward. But why? What was it about it that I disliked so? The feeling existed in my mind, that I was certain of, yet try as I might, I found myself utterly incapable of putting it into words. This wasn't going anywhere. My eyes still closed, I scratched my head. My hair was bone dry. I could practically feel it tearing my flesh into shreds. Normally, my mind was bouncing all over the place, yet right now, all I could think about was her. This wasn't good. Those feelings from earlier came rushing back, this time scrubbing the interiors of my cheeks. They tasted bitter. Heat, humidity, and unpleasant feelings. While the first two were an unfortunate part of summer, there was a way to get rid of that last one. How? I already knew how. By seeing that woman again. Once I saw her, those feelings would temporarily go away. Ugh, kinda scary, huh? Was she some sort of a human drug? A faint giggle escaped my lips, and I opened my eyes, only to be startled by the sight before me. It was my little sister. She was lying on the futon next to mine, her eyes wide open, staring at me.
Oh, sorry. Did I wake you up?
We'd been sleeping on separate futons ever since my sister started elementary school, although she did still sneak into mine from time to time, just not today.
Where are you going, sis? You go somewhere every morning.
She'd noticed? I was a little shocked.
A walk? Okay then. I'm coming too.
Come on! She's your sister! Play with her sometimes!
This voice, echoing from the darkness of the hallway, nearly caused me to leap up. In the next moment, the door to our room was pulled open. It turned out to be Mom, standing there with her arms crossed.
Ha ha ha! I heard you talking on my way back from the bathroom, so I thought I'd investigate. So, my daughter is going out in the morning. Is it a man? Is it your boyfriend? A lover's rendezvous?
I turned my head and just barely managed to stop myself pouting.
Oh, is that a pout I see? No use trying to hide it from me.
Mom kept on laughing, only stopping when I poked her in the side.
Oof! When did you get like this? You used to be so cute before. Yep, just plain old ugly now.
Well, that was pretty damn rude, wasn't it? I honestly didn't even know how to respond. I could feel the blood in my face being drained away, giving me shivers.
Ah, now, that angry face? That's kinda cute.
Bubbles formed in the blood vessels in my arms. Those bubbles then moved to my fingers, causing them to shake. I wanted to shout. I wanted to stomp the floor. Honestly, it was a miracle that I managed to hold myself back. The sheer amount of willpower that took made me feel like I was going to collapse right then and there. Sometimes I really hated this woman. I wanted to yell, to tear my face off and just keep yelling. The only reason I didn't do that was because my sister was standing next to me. The pit of my stomach boiling, I decided the best course of action was to ignore Mom and head towards the front door. I hadn't planned on going out today. At the same time, I could hardly stand staying here. My sister followed after me. The kind of willpower it would have taken to convince her to stay, I no longer possessed. I simply took her shoes from the shelf and placed them next to mine.
Take care!
I muttered back. And so, accompanied by my young sister, I ventured into the still silent town. We were holding hands, and every now and then, she would move her fingers around against my palm. It kinda tickled.
This is pretty far away. Huh?
Despite everything, I still made a conscious effort not to come across needlessly hostile towards my sister. I like to think I was better than that. Walking far slower than usual, the two of us made our way down the usual street. We reached the spiral bridge right as my palm was starting to sweat from holding hands with my sister. And, walking down the steps, I nervously scanned the surroundings to see if she was around. She wasn't. I checked the bench, the hoop, yet all I could see was the residual darkness left from the night. I was immediately struck by a strange sensation. It almost felt like someone had carved a massive hole into my stomach. I wonder, what did that say about me?
Oh, so you were playing basketball?
As we entered the court, the girl decided to do a small jump towards the hoop. This caused her hair, only tied up on one side, to sway in the air, and staring at her, I could feel the expression of anger that had been building up on my face starting to melt away. Mom had told us to play together, so I guess that meant we should do something with the basketball. With that said, not even I was cruel enough to challenge my poor little sister into a serious match. I picked her up.
What?
I then handed her the ball.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Doing as she was told, the girl tossed the ball towards the ground. As the ball bounced off the pavement, I lifted her to the appropriate height, letting her catch it with ease. Apparently finding this quite funny, she went ahead and threw the ball for a second time, this time using both of her tiny hands. I was honestly shocked just how high up it bounced as a result. For someone her size, she certainly packed a punch. We continued like that for a while, with me running after the ball, and her dribbling it. Holding her like this, I found myself painfully aware of the fact that she was growing, and fast. While it was easy for me to carry her initially, it didn't take too long until I started running out of breath. Well, whatever. What did it matter how this made me look? It wasn't like there was anyone around to witness it, right? It was in that moment that I felt a gaze behind me. I turned around, and with my vision blurred by the droplets of sweat dripping down my face, our eyes met. There she was, the kimono woman, sitting on the bench, smiling at me like usual.
Just now.
She got up and walked over to me. At the same time, my little sister pressed herself against me, as if frightened by her. The woman's sandals made quite the pleasant sound as she walked, totally different from that made by regular shoes.
Good morning. Is that your little sister?
Curled up in my arms, the girl stared at her with fear in her eyes, to which the woman only smiled.
It is always a delight coming across girls of your age, where their cuteness enters full bloom.
Sis? Who is this?
She asked me in a faint voice. Who was she? Honestly, your guess was as good as mine. Perhaps not entirely accurate, but that felt like the most reasonable explanation I could come up with.
A student, rather. She's teaching me how to play basketball.
Having said that, the woman bent her knees a tiny bit, placing her on eye level with my sister.
This is all I have, but I hope you can make do.
She then pulled out a small pouch from inside her kimono and handed it to her.
What are these?
Beans I feed to pigeons.
Is that really all you have?
Even her laugh sounded oddly pleasant.
There are no pigeons here.
The girl stated, looking around the paved courtyard.
Birds tend to stick around wherever they are given food, so it's important to not feed them in a location where they might constitute an inconvenience.
In that case, why even give her the beans at all? Judging from the way my sister was grasping the bag, all confused looking, this concept seemed to be a little too advanced for her to fully wrap her head around.
When there are no pigeons around, I use them like this.
She pulled the string used to keep the bag closed open, pulled out a bean, and placed it in her mouth. You could hear the satisfying sound of the dried treat cracking into pieces from behind her lips. My sister stared at her for a while, before grabbing a bean of her own. It looked like she wanted to try one out too.
It's fine.
The woman, or perhaps a pigeon, went ahead and swallowed. Well, I guess it couldn't have been that bad for you then, huh? I decided to let my sister eat the bean, and she immediately began chewing on it. However, mere moments later, the expression on her face changed into one of confusion.
It tastes like nothing.
Right?
Giggling, the woman grabbed another bean.
Want one?
She then asked me.
Okay.
She nodded in response. I kind of felt like she would have reacted the same way no matter what I said.
It smells like flowers here.
My sister proceeded to sniff the air, to which the woman responded by taking a step towards her. While this act did appear to startle the girl slightly, she quickly realized where the smell was coming from.
Flower person!
She proclaimed.
Ah, I like that.
The smile which appeared on her face made it clear that she genuinely did.
I wish I could plant some flowers here, but these are all I have.
You still got more?
The woman pulled out a second bag of beans from her pocket, earning herself a gleeful smile from my sister. Huh. Looked like it had worked on her.
Bean person!
No. I think I preferred flower person. Let's stick with that.
She sounded like she earnestly meant that, yet my sister just kept on giggling. I was honestly shocked. Not in a million years would I have expected my meek little sister to get along with her, and certainly not to this extent. And yet, it had just kind of happened? Perhaps it was the fact that she came off so proper, but at the same time wasn't afraid to show off her more childish side. Since she was here already, perhaps I could take advantage of that. My arms were starting to get mighty tired. Plus, it wasn't like I could practice while holding her anyway. I figured that this wasn't a reasonable thing to ask. However, the woman appeared to disagree.
Absolutely not. What are you talking about?
She responded, the tone of her voice all sharp now. She had her hands placed on her hips, as if lecturing me.
No matter how trustworthy a stranger looks, they are still just a stranger. You cannot possibly think it's a good idea to entrust your own little sister to them. That's simply absurd.
Her lashing out like this, after acting so calm before, made her words hit that much harder.
You really ought to be more suspicious of people. She is your dear little sister. You must keep her in sight at all times to ensure her safety. It's a known fact that perverts will put on a proper appearance while they are looking for prey.
The woman paused for a second. This appeared to be a surprisingly difficult question for her to answer.
I am known to be, from time to time.
Not that anything about her looked regular.
That's enough about me. You seriously ought to take better care of your sister. Don't be like me.
She tilted her head slightly and focused her eyes on nothing. A small smile could be seen forming on her lips, resembling a half-moon. Seriously, what was up with her? I wanted to ask her to clarify, but the words simply wouldn't come out. Her voice was so soft and so slick that it made it impossible to respond to it. At the same time, it was also impossible to take hold of.
I now feel like if I did, I would take very good care of them. I have you to thank for that.
What did I even do?
Yes, seeing you look after your sister like that. It made me realize that yes, that would be nice.
Really? That was how it had come off to her? I lowered my gaze towards my sister, still in my arms. Yeah, actually, I think I saw her point now.
Anyway, that's all to say that you should play with her.
Next, she addressed the girl with a soft smile on her face.
You want to play with your sister too, don't you?
Yeah.
This was followed by her grinning at me.
Oh, but I don't want to be left out. That would be boring. Let's say that we'll all play together and shake on that.
Me.
The woman lifted her hand, and so did my sister, and the two shook. Normally, so very shy around strangers, seeing her not only go along with the woman, but do so with a smile on her face, honestly made me feel more alarmed than anything. This person truly was a master at slipping into others' hearts, wasn't she? She made your mind jump all over the place, and then, once your shields were down, she snuck right in. Her refined appearance, her pleasant smile, her springy voice, her choice of words, they all played into it. The question was, did she do it on purpose, or was it all just a big coincidence? Should I be impressed or scared?
So, what do we want to play? This dress would be perfect for some beanbag juggling, though now that I think about it, I don't have one of those with me. Oh, don't say that. You're making me feel old.
With that, the woman extended her hand towards me. I stared at her palm for a few moments, and then placed the ball on it. It appeared that, for whatever reason, she had decided not to bring her own ball today. With the ball in her hands, the woman then crouched down and began bouncing it at an extremely high speed, all the while grinning at my sister, as if trying to show off to her. Not to rain on her parade, but this wasn't how you played with a beanbag, was it? My sister didn't seem to mind, though, as she eagerly waited for her turn. The woman soon handed her the ball, after which she turned towards me and tapped me on the shoulder.
Go ahead and teach her, big sis.
It was as if we were changing shifts or something.
Sis!
I heard the girl calling for me. Back when I'd been younger, I'd always sprinted to her when I'd heard that voice. It had made me so happy to be her older sister. I watched her bounce the ball just as I taught her. Next to us, our shadows danced in the sunlight. The woman's was bright, just like her smile, and extended over me with ease. I brought my eyes to the root of the shadow, earning myself a soft,
Yes? Huh. Yeah, I guess that's true. Still, you're only in middle school. You can still grow. That's good. Oh no, never mind. Ha ha ha.
She laughed. For some reason, it didn't sound like she was trying to hide anything.
Not taking part in any club activities in your third year?
When had I even mentioned that I was in middle school? Or in my third year? The mysteries just kept on growing in number.
How was your last tournament? Did you feel satisfied?
That was a pretty weird question to ask out of the blue. Who was she? My mom? I kinda didn't even know what to say.
Yes, I can see that. You don't come across as the kind of kid a teacher would like.
I'd been vague on purpose, and yet she had seen right through me. Was this why she had brought up the club thing? To be able to get us to this topic? Again, very clever and very suspicious.
No, I think it did.
This comment of mine earned me a laugh.
Oh, how young you are. Truly dazzling.
I wanted to protest, but before I could, the woman had already moved on to the next topic.
Have you ever experienced true talent? Not in yourself or in others, but in the abstract.
Perhaps the very fact that I didn't was a sign of me lacking it. I asked her back. This angle that I was staring at her from was really starting to hurt my neck, though. Thankfully, I ended up not having to wait long for her answer.
Having talent means being able to do things you haven't been told how to do.
The woman paused for a moment to wave to my sister, still dribbling the ball.
That is the conclusion I've come to after talking to a great many people over the years. There are these individuals who just seem to have all the answers, almost like they were born with them.
There was not a hint of jealousy to be found in her voice. In fact, as she continued, you could say that she even sounded quippy.
Sometimes, I like to think that I'm talented too.
Ha 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 ha, she laughed. I could feel the softness of her voice echoing throughout my skin.
I know how to make girls feel pleasant.
The way she pronounced that word, pleasant, made it sound like for whatever reason it didn't quite roll off the tongue. With a step much lighter than her getup would have suggested, the woman turned around and left my side.
Yes?
Standing in front of my sister, her arms spread open like those of a defender, the woman turned to look back at me. Just what sort of a face was I making as I asked her that? Even I couldn't tell.
No, I think you're really cute.
Her answer came soft, without any shame. Like the rays of the morning sun, her words hit my cheeks.
Definitely in the top 3 of your class.
Higher than I had thought, but also not high enough to brag about. No one had ever called me cute to my face. No one except her. The one person who had seen me the most was Mom, and she had called me ugly. Which one of them should I trust? As much as it pained me to say it, the answer had to be Mom. So, did that mean that this person was lying then? I thought about it for a moment and came to the conclusion that no, it did not. It was simply that the face I showed to her and the face I showed to Mom were 2 different faces entirely.
Sis, carry me.
I still did it though. Carrying my sister, just like I had on our way in, I walked up the steps of the spiral staircase. The morning sun had begun to grow red, and with each step I took underneath its blaze, I could feel a new drop of sweat appearing on my forehead. Screw all that other stuff! This was the #1 reason why bringing her here had been a mistake. Next time, we'd go to the nearby park or something. Only one thought came to my mind as I fumbled to find my keys. Ugh! I really needed a shower. I said to my sister before stepping inside.
Why not?
While that expression was just something that had popped into my mind, the more I thought about it, the more it felt like it fit. I placed my finger on my lips and proceeded to make a shh sound, at which point the girl's eyes lit up. It appeared that I'd won her over. Trying to explain to Mom how we'd encountered some suspicious stranger was bound to be a painful experience. I'd had my fair share of fights with her over things that ultimately didn't matter, and as far as it was possible, I wanted to avoid those going forward.
Do you promise we'll play again?
I wasn't sure if the "we" there was referring to us two, or if it included the woman as well, but I still went ahead and answered her regardless. That woman dressed in a kimono. I knew neither what her name was, nor where she came from. All I did know was that her looks were as striking as a baseball bat, her mannerisms as soft as a pile of mattresses, and her flowery scent so mesmerizing that it made you question if the flowers on her kimono weren't real after all. Had you asked me before if there existed a person like her in this town, I would have said no with full confidence. Even just at a glance, it was clear that she was as rare as she was pretty, like a butterfly beauty. So then, why? Why was it so difficult for me to go to her? I woke up at the same time as usual in the morning, which was strange, given that I hadn't even turned my alarm clock on. I briefly considered getting up, but as I laid there, watching my sister restlessly kicking her feet inside her futon, I ultimately decided against it.
Sis?
I could hear her ask in a drowsy voice. I responded. Softly, like cream, the girl fell back into sleep. I decided to follow her lead, rolling over and closing my eyes. There was no escaping the warmth of my futon. It was like squirming in quicksand. Lying there, unable to fall asleep, a thought floated into my mind. A thought of an old friend, Terumi. Back in elementary school, I truly had believed her to be a person whose face I would see daily for the rest of my life. And yet, after being placed in different classes in middle school, we kind of just ended up drifting apart. These days, I hardly even noticed when I walked past her in the hallway. Now, you could say that such was the nature of friendship, and I certainly wasn't going to argue against you. Things you took for granted had a tendency to fade away while you weren't looking, and would sometimes do so even when you were. I'd only recently noticed that there was little that could be done about that. If that happened with friends, then it made sense to assume that the same would happen with, Gone, the dog who lived with my grandparents in the countryside. It had shocked me just how bad his condition had gotten the last time I saw him. He was old, walked sluggishly, and was barely able to keep up with me. Ever since then, my mind had been filled with anxiety. I felt uneasy. My stomach hurt constantly, as if it were crying. A follow-up thought appeared in my mind. Along the road I had taken to elementary school, there had been this house with a large dog. Whenever a group of kids walked past it, the dog would always come out to sit on the lawn. All sorts of kids would say hi to the dog. I'd done so too, naturally, with a bright smile on my face. Then, one day, the dog moved to a different house, and a note appeared attached to the fence of the original house saying, "Thank you, everyone." It even had a picture of the dog, making it seem like the dog was saying it. Back then, I'd felt bad, but now, I got it. Where gone would go? I wonder. Lying there, unable to find an answer, I could see a line of white drifting about inside my eyelids. It left behind a trail, like that of a shooting star, before disappearing. Before I knew it, my consciousness started fading away. Ah, finally. Freedom from all things scary. I felt like it had been nothing but those lately. But knowing that you would never make any progress if you only kept thinking about the future, I decided to force myself to focus on the present. My sister was still asleep. What a good girl. After staring at her for a while to make sure she wasn't going to wake up randomly, I pulled the thin blanket off my body and got up. While I didn't mind bringing her along, it was incredibly tiresome to have to pay constant attention to her. I certainly didn't want to do it every single time. So I quietly left our room, making sure not to wake her up, past our parents' bedroom, praying that Mom hadn't gotten up yet, and finally reached the entrance where I put my shoes on. As usual, I headed out straight from bed. I hadn't even bothered to clean up the mess that was my hair. I wonder, why was it that I'd only now started thinking about that? It had been 5 days since I'd headed out with my sister. 5 days was a long time. Long enough for a friend to turn into an acquaintance. I bet that the woman, too, was long since gone. Not that I cared, obviously. I told myself as I half ran towards the basketball court. Running without any sort of warm-up really got my blood pumping, and I could feel the final moments of the fog of tiredness floating above my mind and fading away. Was this the first time I'd ever ran down the spiral bridge? It very well might have been. One by one, the buildings on the other side of the wall disappeared from my sight. Perhaps it was a particularly cold day today, because I couldn't feel the hot air clinging to my skin like usual. Rather, my body felt light as a feather. Having made it down the bridge, I next turned towards the basketball hoop and sprinted to it. Gasping for air, I looked around me, but there was no one there but me. That's fine, I told myself while smacking the ball.
Whew. Despite running the whole way here, my body for some reason still felt stiff. I stretched my arms open, could practically feel my muscles creaking. A soft moan escaped my lips. Why had I come here if there was no one else here? To practice, of course. That had supposed to been my reason from the start. It was only after I ran into that weirdo that things got all messed up. And now, everything was returning to normal. Yes, exactly. That was all that was going on here.
Oh!
All of a sudden, a voice called out to me. I quickly turned around. That wasn't her, was it? Certainly did not sound like it.
I knew it was you!
I immediately recognized this person as a member of my school's basketball team. Well, a former member. She was older than me and had already graduated. She was wearing a plain white t-shirt, as well as a pair of sandals. I remember her telling me that she enjoyed going for early morning walks, and it seemed like she hadn't been kidding. Had we ever talked about her leaving the team? I honestly couldn't remember.
Aw, why do you look so disappointed? Were you expecting someone else?
Did I look like that? Well, I wasn't. Definitely not. She might have been dressed plainly, but her wits were as sharp as ever. Her hair was naturally blonde, which really gave her the appearance of someone who wasn't from around here. I remember her always being the center of attention in school. Even during matches, all she needed to do was take a single step forward, and she would instantly be surrounded by blockers. I never got the impression that she was too comfortable with that.
You quit the club, and yet here you are still practicing. Oh, that's great. What time? Don't you have entrance exams coming up?
She hadn't asked how the tournament had gone, giving me the impression that she already knew. The girl lowered her gaze and softly shook her head.
Not up to much. Can't really play, and, well, I also don't feel like studying.
Perhaps it was due to being contrasted against her golden hair, but the expression of the girl's face looked really weak. Fleeting, you could even say. Unlike me, she was actually really pretty. Easily the number 1 or 2 of her class, which I'd hazard a guess earned her more attention from those around her than was the case of an average-looking person. And yet, it never seemed like she had any interest in paying even the tiniest amount of attention back. Her hands were simply too full as they were. Even now, it still felt like that. Huh. Yeah, it really did. Most of the time, you don't randomly run into people you've parted ways with. And even when you do, it kind of just feels awkward. I bet the same would be true were I to run into Terumi again. Sensing that conversation had come to an end, the girl waved her hand at me and turned away.
See ya!
That was quite the cold expression to use, was it? I certainly felt that way, yet the girl didn't seem to mind. Now that I thought about it, I guess that was how she'd always been. She was easily the person at the club with whom I'd talked the most. Neither of us were particularly sociable, and which in a weird way made it easier for us to empathize with each other. Most of the time our conversations consisted of her just complaining about stuff, like how her parents always made her do chores when she got home. Not to put any words into her mouth, it did sound like her life was quite... Had you asked me if I thought I'd ever see her again, I probably would have said no. Surely we still live in the same town, but so did a whole bunch of other people who I never saw anymore. Honestly, it was kinda strange when you thought about it. It wasn't like we live in some big city or anything. Surely you would have expected us to bump into each other at some point? Even if by pure chance. Surely the town wasn't quite as small in reality as it was in my mind. Rolling the ball in my hand, I decided to get back to what I'd come here to do in the first place. That was practicing throws. I walked over to the hoop, and just as I reached it, I spun around. There was a person there, staring at me from beneath the bridge. Even from this distance, I instantly recognized their green and yellow eyes. Our eyes met, yet the woman refused to move away from her hiding spot. Profoundly confused, I tried beckoning to her. As I did, the woman at last leapt from the shadows. She wasn't wearing the full kimono today, but instead a light yukata. That was perhaps why her stride looked much more nimble this time.
Morning. Oh, no reason. Just thought it would be fun. And it was.
She really was able to find fun in anything, huh? Kinda reminded me of Mom.
When I got here, I saw you just standing around, so I thought I'd hide until you spotted me. Turns out you did so almost immediately.
Definitely didn't want to make it seem like I've been looking for her or something. Also, given that she hadn't mentioned it, I felt like it was safe to assume that she had not seen Senpai. I bet she would have liked to, though. She was, after all, a high school student, and she was, in her own words, into them.
Didn't bring your sister along today, I see. It's a shame.
She commented while staring at my chest area, as if the girl might have out any second now. Certainly, my sister had liked the woman quite a bit.
I'd say it's more that I loved seeing you take care of her.
There was something so soft, so pleasant about the way she pronounced the word love. It was like velvet. I could feel a faint blush appearing on my cheek. Not that the word itself meant anything to me. Of course it didn't.
Anyway, I haven't seen you here in a few days. Why is that? Have you been sleeping late? Fair enough.
The woman quickly responded. The tone of her voice was like even, showing not even the mildest hint of annoyance.
Truth be told, I've only been coming here myself these past few days since I completed my errands early and have had far too much free time as a result. I suppose I figured I could have killed some time talking with you.
In contrast to how her words often felt like they were hiding something sinister, this statement came across sounding completely sincere.
So yes, I won't be coming by again. Huh? No, not at all.
Part of me wanted to assert that I hadn't come here to see her, but I decided against it.
With that in mind, I'd like to talk with you for a bit.
The woman turned around and walked over to the bench. Then, without any hesitation, she sat down before gesturing me to join her.
Oh, are you afraid of getting yourself dirty? Well, in that case, you may sit on my lap.
She opened her arms and shot a bright smile my way. All the while, her feet were tapping the ground as if hurrying me up. Me, a middle schooler, sitting on her an adult. But perhaps it would have worked between her and my little sister, but us two? The balance there felt all sorts of off. In all likelihood, this was just another one of her jokes. Yeah, that must have been it. Telling myself that, I slowly drew towards the woman. She was still smiling, and her arms were still spread wide open. I was now standing right in front of her, yet she still wasn't calling it off. I turned around, bent my knees a little bit. Open your mind now.
Oh no, you weren't actually supposed to do it. Right, I guess I am.
With no noticeable change in her expression, the girl simply kept on smiling. She had a sort of an unstable beauty to her. One that made you feel both safe and cautious at the same time. Like, I knew I wasn't really going to sit on her lap, yet the way she smiled made me feel like maybe I should? All in all, very strange. And no, I did not know what I was talking about. Now, how was I going to resolve the situation? Well, I obviously didn't want to stay like this with my butt pointed towards her forever. There still remains some slight hesitation in my mind towards the idea of sitting down on the dirty bench. Should I just sit on her lap then? Well, besides the obvious reasons as to why that was a bad idea, I also wasn't sure how I felt about the idea of being so physically close to a person outside my family. I guess you could say I wasn't quite used to it.
The human body sure is full of mysteries. Here I am, staring at the butt of a middle schooler, yet it's doing absolutely nothing for me. How does that work? How does my brain even know whose butt it is? On the other hand, were it the butt of a high schooler, then I surely wouldn't be able to take my eyes off it.
Was she being serious right now? If so, then, wow. That was all I had to say. Seems like all she had going for her, after all, was her pretty face and gentle personality. At the same time, wasn't that enough? How much more positive qualities did one truly needed?
I'm fine with you staying like that, but are you sure your knees can take it?
I could feel a strange pressure against the back of my neck, and with it, my mind turning blank.
Choosing the toughest way to live. That's pretty cool. Yes.
That word, yes, slid out of her mouth like a stream of liquid. Warm liquid, specifically, and clean. The kind of wash, kind of the thing that you use to wash your face with? After a few moments, I finally gave up and sat down on the bench next to her. Who cared if my clothes got dirty? I certainly didn't. Moreover, wasn't that why we wore clothes in the first place? To get dirty instead of our bodies? When you thought about it, this was actually the correct way of using them. The bench let out a loud creak as I lowered my body on it. Was it saying that I was too heavy? Well, shut up, bench. All in all, the thing was incredibly uncomfortable to sit on. I kind of felt like I could have just planted my butt on the bare ground, and it wouldn't have been all that different.
Welcome in.
A strange giggle left the woman's mouth. Had I ever seen her laugh this close before? No, I had not. There was also something else I realized that I had not noticed, partly because of the kind of dress she was wearing, and partly because she had always been so far away. Her breasts were huge. And nothing. Before I knew it, my gaze had shifted from the woman's face down to her chest.
Oh, you're staring at my breasts.
She got me good. I swiftly turned my head away, trying to act like I hadn't just been, well, doing exactly that.
Well, it's understandable. You are a girl going through puberty, after all. Although I'm well past it myself, and I still like them.
Those words were just meant to showcase my shock. Obviously, I did not know what she meant. Isn't that stupid? The woman pushed her chest forward, tapped it lightly, and then continued.
I know this isn't the most appropriate follow-up for a conversation about breasts, but I'd like to talk about something more serious now. There's that pained look I know you for.
The woman commented. The tone of her voice having not changed one bit from the previous topic. It felt like I'd just been poked in the chest by an invisible finger. People often said that I looked angry, but pain? That was a new one.
Very much so.
And just like that, she had put a name to the discomfort eating me up from inside. I was in pain. What was causing that pain? Something that was hiding. What was causing that pain? Something that tried to make itself invisible? What was causing that? She was a total stranger. Someone who had no reason whatsoever to matter to me. And yet, her bright smile had just cast a ray of light into the bottomless well inside my soul. I placed my head against my hand, hunched forward, and closed my eyes, as if that light was too bright. And as I did that, I could feel all the things that had been stuck inside me starting to tumble down. Sadness, suffering, pain.
Putting it that way, the answer to my frustration was actually pretty simple. I was scared. Scared of what the passage of time would take from me. Of this world where people were constantly dying.
Huh, I see.
That was all the woman had to say in response. Not that I could blame her. To her, I was simply a stranger talking about a dog they'd never met. However, in the very next moment, I could feel her arms wrapping around my head and her pulling me against her body. The sheer confidence in her movement made it seem like I wasn't the first person she'd done this to. What sort of people had she embraced like this in the past? And what sort of people would she embrace in the future? Those were the sort of thoughts that flew through my mind as my head softly pressed against her chest. With her sweet fragrance entering the very pores of my skin, it felt almost like I was resting upon a field of flowers. There was a certain coziness, a certain warmth to it that you might expect from leaning against another. But also the discomfort that came from having to balance yourself in such an awkward position. I simply wasn't used to it. It made me shudder. And yet, as if my body had grown 100 times heavier, I found myself unable to move. I wasn't crying or anything, and yet, I also couldn't lift my face.
It can be quite difficult, but I advise that you cherish that pain.
The woman spoke to me from across the field of flowers.
It's never a good idea to turn your back to your true feelings.
Her voice had always sounded so very refined, yet now, for the first time ever, I swore that I could hear it ever so slightly breaking. Still, none of that changed the nature of her words, or the fact that it was simply impossible for me to put them into practice. It might have been good advice for an adult, but an adult I was not. Many more moments passed by, with me lying in her lap, and her holding me like a ball.
Have you calmed down?
Normally, I would have stomped the ground and argued against her, but now, for whatever reason, I didn't feel like moving. Perhaps I felt bad treading on the flower field.
It's quite sad that we had to meet under these circumstances. If only you weren't in middle school.
If I was in high school, what exactly would she have done to me then? I might laugh at the thought now, but if it really did happen, would I be able to laugh then?
Have you calmed down?
She asked me again. I decided to answer honestly. Not like there was any point in trying to hide things at this stage. As if that was exactly what the woman had been waiting for me to say, she lifted her hand off my head.
Now, shall we play? Did you forget? I said that I wanted to have a match with you after practicing for a little bit.
Following her lead, I too got up from the bench. I then quickly brushed my backside. Could that be the reason why she'd come here? Because she wanted to wrap up what she'd started? Maybe you could call that having a sense of responsibility, though on a second thought, I wasn't really sure if that was the right word.
And like we agreed, the loser will need to do anything the winner wants.
I certainly didn't remember that part. Now, how bad of an idea was it to give this woman that kind of a power? Probably very bad.
However, like I said before, I have absolutely no interest in middle school girls. That's to say, there's nothing I want from you.
If that was true, then why had she spoken to me in the first place? Had it simply been to kill time? Or perhaps she was lying. In either case, her inexplicable friendliness toward me did leave many questions unanswered. This snarky remark was met by a soft smile. Out of all the expressions I had seen on her face so far, this one looked by far the most mature.
You can go first.
The woman suggested. Seeing no issue with that, I stepped forth. I bounced the ball 2-3 times before raising it to be in front of my face. The weight of it felt good against my wrists. I breathed in and then out. The sensation of oxygen running through my body was quite the pleasant one. I could also smell the remnants of the flowery scent still stuck in my hair. Flower. Flower woman. I could feel my heart starting to pound, and with it, I focused my strength. Through my days of practicing here, I'd piled up some rocks near the hoop to use as footing. Today, for the first time, I'd be putting them to use. There, on the highest spot from the ground, I stood. I then leapt up, and without any hesitation, shot the ball. The rocks I'd so carefully piled up silently crumbled, and my feet were left standing on nothing. And yet, I didn't care. All my eyes were focused on was the ball. I watched as it soared through the air, painting a perfect parabola against the clouds of the early morning. It was there that a strange sensation traveled down from my arms to my elbows. That sensation was happiness, as powerful as an electric shock.
Looks like you won.
As I landed, I was met with applause. Seemingly satisfied by what she'd witnessed, the woman laughed. As drawn in by a beautiful flower, I approached her. However, as the coach had always taught me, it was too early to celebrate. I picked the ball up and handed it to the woman. Me, someone who'd always had trouble passing the ball during my club days. While not what I'd been practicing, it looked like I had learned something new. Like it happened to me. What exactly had driven me to say that? Honestly, the sole explanation I could give was that I'd simply felt like it. Perhaps my long days of training finally bearing fruit had put me into a merry mood. Perhaps.
You sure?
The woman thought for a while.
Having a person do anything you want doesn't sound nearly as enticing when they're the one offering it. It's much more fun making them do what you want yourself.
There was something about the way the woman lifted the corners of her lips that made my skin crawl. I was laughing too, yes, but trust me when I say that my spine was stiff enough to rip through my skin. I'd said it before, but this woman definitely was scary. The woman then stepped forth and placed herself underneath the hoop. She straightened out her back, and that alone made her look like something straight out of a postcard. I continued to stare at her, not directly hoping that she'd fail, or succeed, but doing something more akin to praying. She jumped beautifully, clearly trying to do it as closely as to how I'd taught her as possible, and released the ball with a soft motion. Unwavering, and with a gentle curve, the ball flew towards the hoop. It then collided with the rim, letting out a loud clink. The sound was a powerful one, bringing to mind the image of a clenched fist, and yet, the sheer existence of it marked her failure. Tracing the ball with her eyes as it bounced back, The woman let out a giggle.
Looks like I lost. Not asking for a redo, but do you mind if I keep trying until I get it in?
Looking much more like a little girl than an adult woman, I watched as she gleefully ran after the ball. She tried 4 more times after that, all misses, before finally getting it in on the 5th.
Teacher! Teacher! Finally got it in!
She proclaimed. Yes, her form had been awful. Yes, she had barely put anything I'd taught her into practice. Yes, the ball had flown all over the place, but who cared? Her smile shone brightly. The droplets of sweat dripping down her forehead somehow made her look even more beautiful, and she still smelled like a bouquet of flowers. All the complaints I had, I decided to cast into the wind. With a pleasant, joyful smile on her face, the woman handed the ball back to me, like laughing away my bored expression.
So, now that you've won, what would you like me to do?
Just like she had nothing she wanted from me, I too found it difficult coming up with a wish. I held no desires towards the woman. Rather, our relationship was one brought about by a passing interest. Not that it was a bad thing, I felt.
A little sister.
Thinking back to watching all calm and composed as I had to deal with my sister made me feel pissed off. Time for you to suffer too, I say. I hastily added. For whatever reason, I hadn't even considered that possibility. Out of sight, out of mind, I suppose. It was almost impossible to change how your mind functioned, and so, if there was something you didn't want to forget, your only choice was to keep it by your side forever. When it would happen, that I did not know, but there was no doubt that she, too, would one day vanish from my memory. As if unwilling to part ways, I continued staring at her.
Got it. It's a promise.
With just those handful of words and nothing more, the woman accepted my proposal. The smile on her face was neither decorative, nor did it show any begrudgment. Hiding nothing, she was smiling from the heart. How did I know that? Because right now, I was too.
Next time we meet, let's go on a date. If you don't already have a girlfriend by then.
Was there going to be a next time? I had no idea, and realistically, neither did she. Not a boyfriend. This whole conversation was moving a bit too fast for my liking, and I ended up simply shaking my shoulders. Seeming satisfied with this, the woman too shook her own. We never had told each other our names, had we? We'd met, and then parted ways, not caring about that even the tiniest bit. I bounced the ball, walked around the court, shot, and then ran after the ball to catch it. Despite both of my feet being firmly planted against the pavement, it still sounded like I was jumping in place. A strange giggle escaped my lips. Ha, ha. One by one, more followed. My shoulders and cheeks alike felt light. The impatience that had been pressing against the back of my head disappeared, and it became incredibly easy for me to move my body forward. I watched as a silent wave of light washed over the town, the light orange glow of the morning sun shining through the gaps between buildings. A thin layer of clouds stretched across the entirety of the sky, with tall pillars here and there rising higher than your eye could possibly see. The silence was only broken by the occasional car driving by. The warmth of the air around me, as well as its scent, put a smile on my face. It felt like it had been ages since I'd last truly witnessed daybreak. I could stare into space, do nothing, or act as energetic as possible. In either case, a new day would start, and it would eventually come to an end. This realization and its consequences spreading through my mind was what finally put the brakes on my overeager emotions. The droplets of sweat dripping down my skin glistened under the light of the morning sun. I'd had fun, and that had made me feel light. Perhaps it really was as simple as that. The sound the ball made as I bounced it felt so nice. I bent my wrist and forced it to spin. That was it. I'd been happy. Not bad. Yes, not bad at all. It was difficult to grasp how serious she was at any given moment, yet in my heart I felt the truth. The sweet aftertaste of her laughter, and the faint coldness it evoked at the same time. Quietly, a feeling unlike anything I'd felt before filled me up from the inside. I'd poked a bubble, popped it, and fallen to the highest of places. This feeling, could it be first love? Laughing the thought off, I bounced the ball once more. In the window created by the ball and my extended hand, I saw something. A person. A bored-looking girl pedaling down the bridge. She was going quite fast, and before I knew it, had vanished from my sight. Neither of us had noticed the other. We'd simply passed each other by. And yet, a few steps later, for whatever reason, I found myself thinking back to her black hair blowing in the wind.
Thank you.